Should you buy Soundhound AI stock or NVIDIA? I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on this just because the companies are so different, but at the same time, they're both AI plays, and I see them mentioned in the same breath in a lot of different places. And I'd like investors to be informed about just what the differences are, what you're getting with each. And so I thought making a video on should you buy one or the other would be perfect. So Soundhound AI stock is trading at 488 and is up over 58% this past year, and has pulled back to around that 20% mark. And by 48, I mean $4.88. Whereas NVIDIA is trading at $847 and is up around 200% this past year, but has seen a similar pullback to Soundhound AI of around 10%. And I think the reason for these recent pullbacks is just the AI space altogether has had a very high valuation for quite a while. NVIDIA's price to sales ratio is 35.4. Soundhound's is very similar at 34.9. And those would be high PE ratios, let alone price of sales. And so for those reasons, I think we're going to start seeing those pullbacks come down a little further in the short term as the market begins to correct itself. It's pretty clear to me that both of these companies have been overvalued for a little while, just because there's so much growth and anticipated growth built into the current prices. It's not exactly realistic to assume these companies are going to be able to maintain their crazy growth rates. NVIDIA's growth rate I saw somewhere is 125% per annum. I believe that's for EPS. And Soundhound AI's was 47% for EPS. Just insane growth rates. They can't maintain that forever. And while I'm sure they're going to grow in the future, I don't see those massive growth rates being sustainable. So for that reason, I think the market's going to correct itself, at least in the short term, just a little bit. It's not going to crash, but I think it's going to correct. Soundhound AI's debt to equity is 299%. That's a number we don't like seeing over 200%. It's a big measure or an important measure of financial distress. And their growth rate, it makes up for a manner of sins. I'm not super concerned, especially 47% growth rate. They're in their growth phase. It's a smaller company. They might be able to maintain that or even, increase that in the short to medium term. So not a lot of concern there, even though it's really high. Whereas NVIDIA's debt to equity is 22.6%. So big difference. NVIDIA is the clear winner in terms of financial distress risk, just because they're the bigger player. They're more established. NVIDIA's revenue is almost 61 billion, and their net income is half that at 29.8, which makes for a huge profit margin of 55%, which is incredible. Whereas Soundhound AI stocks, their TTM revenue is 45 million, and their TTM net income is actually a loss of 91.7, so we can't really get a profit margin on that. And that's the reason I had to use a price to sales ratio earlier instead of a price to earnings when it came to comparing valuations. But their loss isn't really concerning just because they're a smaller company. They're in their growth phase. NVIDIA's already been through this. That loss is just because they're using cash to fuel growth and reinvest in their company. So of course it isn't expected to be profitable quite yet. That being said, Soundhound is projected to grow its EPS by 31% per annum, and NVIDIA's is projected to grow theirs by 23%. Soundhound's is likely a lot larger just because, again, it's in the growth phase. It's a much smaller company that has room to grow, while NVIDIA has already put a lot of that growth behind it. And speaking of probability of bankruptcy, NVIDIA's is 8%, whereas Soundhound's is around 28%. Again, that's just mainly due to the size of each. Neither of them's really concerning at all. There are rumors that NVIDIA is looking to expand into China to keep up their growth rates, which is a good play. And Soundhound AI is already going into Stellantis vehicles using NVIDIA's technology. I believe they call it Drive. So the fact they've partnered up makes the NVIDIA versus Soundhound argument pretty interesting and kind of mute. But I would say Soundhound is definitely more high risk, high reward growth play, whereas NVIDIA is the less risky, more established, more mature value play. So if you want growth and you don't mind some risk, Soundhound's the way to go. But if you want more value, less risk, go with NVIDIA. However, no matter which one you go with, just note that valuations right now, again, are so high for these companies. And if I were you, I would honestly wait for them to go back down to earth, just considering their price of sales is so high. Wait for the pullback, wait for the buying opportunity. It will come. Remember, buy low, sell high. Don't buy high and then sell low. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next video.